Right, what's happening, people? Welcome to this episode of Everything 9000. We're going to be talking about India. It's been in the news recently. Mainstream media are covering it too.
Hot on the news.
Situation is just a bit dire at the moment.
Very.
COVID's obviously hitting India hard. It's their second wave, I believe. Figures from literally yesterday are, just under 350,000 COVID cases.
That's bad.
And I think it was similar, literally same before then as well.
Yeah, 315k a couple of days ago, which is a world record. The country now is only behind America in terms of total COVID cases, but it's setting the records for daily cases, and given the population in India,
it'll probably surpass.
And you know what? To be honest, I think this is just the numbers that they're counting. There's so many people out there that won't be testing, or they won't be getting tests, or like even if they are testing, with this government, would you really be surprised if they weren't releasing the full numbers? So the situation there is a lot more dire than I think it is in the news. When you look at on what's going on the ground, hospitals, we'll get onto the hospitals bit anyway, but they are like severely overwhelmed, man.
See, this is another point you just made now. Yeah, you're touching on the government there, and that's fine. Like, this is a platform where you literally say what you want to say. Obviously, just be mindful. Traffic control at the airport is gonna pull you by and put this cloud down YouTube video and say, "What were you saying here, bro?"
They're gonna, "Sir, come to this side, please."
We need to chat to you.
We've been monitoring your Instagram.
But yeah, what's your thoughts on what's happening in India then? So
what's interesting is, like, recently in the news they've really focused on things like the Kumbh Mela and stuff like that.
What's the Kumbh Mela? I don't know what that is.
Okay, you guys looking at me. So the Kumbh Mela is basically like a celebration within the Hindu religion, and it comes, I think, once every 12 years basically, and like it's they gather in not 100% which state it is now, but basically they gather around like a holy river. I'm not sure if it's the Ganga. I think it is the Ganga, right?
Yeah.
And basically that attracts, because it happens like once every 12 years, it attracts like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, even like I think millions, right? Yeah, normally. But this year, I think it attracted like about 300,000 people. And on the first day, this was when things were starting to get bad, right? Yeah, they were starting to get bad. Numbers were going up like crazy. Because I don't know if you guys heard, like, there's this new mutant of virus now, but it's called the Indian kind of mutant virus, right? Yeah. The variant there, that's a bit, I think, how we had it in the UK, was a bit more dangerous, and it was a bit more kind of like more contagious than the one that we had before. So with this one, on the first day, basically, they tested, I think, like a 500 or 300 people had tested positive of the people that they tested, and by the end that number was like in thousands. It just kind of spread, and there was obviously, you can imagine like 300,000 people confined to like one small space. So there was people weren't wearing masks, they were sharing, like they were in the Ganga, so they were all like sharing the same water and stuff. There was no social distancing and stuff, right? Yeah. And largely the government allowed it to kind of carry on, because the CM, the chief minister of that state, basically said, he's one of the organizers of the Mela, right? Yeah, he basically said, well, look, you know what, we're with God here and stuff. COVID can't touch us and all that.
I heard that too. If you set foot in the Ganga, then it doesn't matter, because the holy water will
protect you. But I don't think that holds up.
Yeah, but
I don't want to offend anybody, but
for sure. Like I think it's interesting to point on the fact that, like, religion in India is huge, is a really big thing. For them it's almost everything. But instead of looking at the Kumbh Mela, like, shouldn't we be taking other factors into consideration, like it was Vaisakhi, and at the Golden Temple, like,
I get your point about that, but basically what this is,
there's so many rallies. I'm saying, like, I know Kumbh Mela might be, and probably was, like,
Kumbh Mela is one of like the 20 things I think the government has failed in, which could have like kind of like stopped or curbed the COVID spread, but they didn't.
So I understand. It's the BJP party. I think that's the party.
Oh yeah.
And there's loads of election rallies going on
right now. So there's, I think, like assembly elections going on within like individual states. Like India's split into different states. I think there's about, I can't remember the top of my head how many there are, but they're not as many as America. But they're split into different states, and the central government, which has the main overall power, is the BJP right now. But each state has its own like elections. It has its own party and stuff. So the BJP run some of the states, like in Punjab and stuff. It's not the BJP who rules; it's the Indian Congress, who's the kind of the main opposition party right now in India overall. So they're having elections and stuff. So obviously BJP and all the other parties are kind of campaigning. The election commission has like not decided not to kind of like stop campaigning at least, or even defer the elections. So you've got big people, like powerful people like Modi and his like you know Home Minister Amit Shah, like he's the right hand man that he has. They've been going into states like West Bengal where they have a chance to win, and they basically been holding rallies, having thousands of people. Modi just the other day, he was like, "Oh, this is the biggest crowd I've ever seen," and this was only a few days ago, and he was like boasting about that, And even those people, like leaders and stuff, when they're on these rallies and stuff, they're not wearing masks or anything like that. So yeah, it's just like literally you could imagine like the worst thing that could happen, and like what's the worst ways you can like spread this? They're just doing that.
Yeah.
And leading on from that, like hospitals are like severely overwhelmed.
See, this is the thing. See, I'm seeing images. Obviously my dad's Indian. He's getting things sent to him. He's forwarding some things. He's even not forwarding some things. He's saying, "Look, I wouldn't even want you to see this video."
Too distressing.
Because there's so many people there, but you forget they are people. And when you see videos,
they're not just
them,
numbers, man. They're not just statistics.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Well, when you see videos of one woman next to a stretcher that her brother's lying on.
Oh no, I think you're about the one with her dad. She was saying that basically with that one, I think what happened was like she brought him in, he couldn't breathe. So that the other thing is like the oxygen. There's like a huge shortage of oxygen.
Yeah.
And she'd brought her dad in, he was struggling to breathe because of COVID and stuff, right? Yeah. And she had him in the car park looking for a doctor, and the guy just passed away in the car park there. And then it was very, very distressing actually, because then the media came and then they started recording her and stuff.
Well, that's the thing, right? So a lot of the videos we're seeing are in the rich states, like
exactly, like in the more. But another thing, I think you were going on to say that. What about like the poorer places, the more rural areas?
Yeah.
But the thing is, places like Delhi, the population's so big there. You got people always going to the airports. It might be that in the rural areas, they're not really mixing with the outside world that much. I mean, that could be the case.
Yeah.
But like, I was gonna say that like I was watching the news like the other day, and the BBC were interviewing like one of the, I don't know, some chief minister from the Health Association in India. And what I found was quite interesting was like the role India actually had to play in developing the vaccine. And apparently it was like quite a big role. I think it's kind of like, it's crazy knowing that India played such a big role in developing the vaccine, and now those are the guys having shortages with those vaccines that they have developed.
Necessarily the government.
India's, let's not get it wrong, right? India, yes, it struggles with poverty and a lot of population, but it's a wealthy nation.
It is a wealthy nation, so like
developing quite a bit too. It
is developing. Like India have made their own. Like I think they've come up with 2 vaccines from what I know, but a lot of these vaccines that have come up, people are coming up in the West, for example, AstraZeneca. I think like that's getting produced in India by the the main company in India. I think they call like India Serum Company or something like that, right? Yeah, they basically producing a lot of them, and a lot of the governments, like in the UK, America, basically had ordered like I think 400 million doses back, like when they were still developing. So they put a lot of money into it, right? But what the Indian government didn't do was, I think, compared to, they only put in an order of like 220 million or something like that. So whereas America and the UK were putting in orders for like 400 million doses and stuff, right? Yeah, India just did it for 20 million. So whilst it's India developing those vaccines and so on, it's more in the private sector, and it's not necessarily the government. And so like, if the government isn't buying the vaccines that are there and stuff, right? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make a difference whether India developed it or not.
Do you know what's crazy though? England were playing India in a cricket match, about a month ago. I was just at home, I put the TV on, and I think it was the new stadium, the 100,000 seater, yeah. And it was this like showcase event, and parts of the ground were just completely shut off. But then there's one side of the ground where you've got 30 to 40,000 people sitting next to each other, not even with a seat gap, but sitting next to each other. And I'm thinking then, like, Is there no COVID in India?
I think for a
what's
long,
happening?
Like,
a lot
I'm not
of
gonna lie,
time-
like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but like, yo, like, I think at the start, when the whole COVID scare was there, like, they did take it seriously. Like, you know, we'd see like videos of like police like beating kids out on the street if like there was a curfew in place, all this. But I think over time, like, maybe they just didn't give a shit. Like, I was speaking to one of my cousins in India. He lives in Pune and stuff, but like, he was just telling me like, recently, about like 2 months ago, like, no one really gave a shit, man. Like, people were going everywhere. Like, one of my boys went to India like recently as well, about a month ago, to do some family stuff, and he was like, yeah, it's like COVID exists there for sure, but there's not that many rules or regulations that tell you can't go here or do stuff
But
like
see,
this.
is the thing.
But I think initially when it broke out, they kind of managed to stem it a bit. Like they managed to curb it a bit because like they took it very seriously.
they put in place curfews. They're
Yeah,
saying, you know,
curfews.
6 p.m. to 6 a.m. You're not allowed out. Stuff like that.
Initially, when the government kind of did like this huge PR thing where like, oh, COVID's here, blah 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 blah, you know, get out, and like, you know, I don't know if you guys saw the videos last year around this time. They were doing like, you know, banging dishes and stuff. Like they were saying, okay, we'll come together and all that. So they managed to kind of stem it, curb it a bit, right? Okay, yeah. But then all of a sudden, because people thought, well, this is okay now, they kind of became too complacent. The government became way too complacent as well. And in recent times, in the recent few weeks and stuff, when it was back in the spike and so on, literally the government just didn't care because there are too many other things going on. So one, for example, you know, the elections and stuff, right? Okay, yeah. So they had that was the main focus, basically. Rallies and stuff, and then even like, you know, the Kumbh Mela, the one reason it was allowed to happen, it was because that's like the VJP's you know, kind of like vote bank and stuff, right? That's
Now it's getting a bit political.
No, but it's true though. It's true. Like, you know, there was a lot of things mentioned about, like, you know, obviously with Ramadan beginning, right? Okay, yeah. So a lot of people were saying, well, you know, maybe we shouldn't allow Muslims to congregate in mosques and stuff, right? Okay, yeah. And there was a petition in the High Court in Delhi, and basically the High Court was said, look, you know, if you're going to allow Hindus to go to the Kumbh Mela, you know, you can't make one rule for one guy, you know, religion,
Like one religion, yeah.
and the other one,
I agree
like,
with that for sure, yeah.
so like the BJPs, like, they don't want to disappoint the people that are going to vote for them. So like, obviously, generally, I think the view consensus, even in the UK, not just India, is that we don't want any lockdowns and stuff, right? You know, it's difficult, it's hard, but it's the choices that we have to make to.
What we forget as well, Ishan makes a good point, is like, you know, not so much, you know, people don't give a shit, but people, you know, they need to earn a living, daily living.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's
they
not
need
like
to
the
go
UK,
to X.
you know, where people, you know, you get like money from the government for not being able to work. Like there were so many migrant workers, like within India, like a lot. Like I think I read, like, I think 90% of the workforce in India basically depends on like a day-to-day wage, right? So imagine that. Like, so those people were jobless. They, you know, in the first lockdown, a lot of them, again, this, I know you don't want to make it political, but like the BJP, right, you know, when they did this whole drive thing about saying, you know, the PM care funds and stuff, right, where they gathered a lot of money. They got like big superstars to donate. I think like Akshay Kumar, who's like a big Bollywood personality, donated like 25 crores, which is like £2.5 million to that fund, right? And that was meant to kind of cover and help people that would need money, but like none of that has been seen. Like, where is that money now? Nobody knows where that money is. A lot of the migrant workers, there were hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people stuck in like Delhi or like, you know, other states trying to get back to their own homes in their own states, and like they weren't running buses, they weren't running trains, nothing was happening, right? Okay, so a lot of them were walking like 600 kilometers just to get to their house.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, not only that, a lot of the time when they were spotted by the police and stuff, the police would abuse them, you know, beat them and so on for being outside. So, you know, like, like nobody gave a shit about those migrant workers. And a lot of those people don't want the lockdown now. Even now they're scared now because they don't want to repeat of that. They don't want to be like jobless again. There was this whole thing, I think a few of the migrant workers last year were walking back to their own states and stuff, and they'd slept on like some roads basically. And like they didn't realize when the train came, and like I think a few of them got run over and like literally were dismembered by that train and stuff. And like on the train tracks you saw like the rotis that they were having and stuff. So all these images and so on that, you know, that's happened before. I think a lot of people are just scared. They don't want lockdown because of that, and like the government is not kind of acting on that either. They're just letting it happen.
I'm just going off, you know, I went to, you know, I go to India regularly, but, you know, 2018, I think it was a couple of years ago, 3 years ago now, I went to Mumbai, and, you know, that is probably, you'd say, one of the more densely populated parts of India. I remember, being stuck in traffic, going over a flyover, just peeked out the window, and just, in sort of this much space, probably like one normal street in England here, you had probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people just literally on top of each other, crammed. Now that was a sort of a mini community. I think it was the Muslim community that lives in Mumbai. It's their community, it's their street, their sort of whatever you call it. It's known to be their area. Now that is just that's something you would never see in England. Never, right? But that's just one street I saw in one city, in one state, in one country. These are the levels we're talking. There are a lot of rural parts in India, but there's a lot of population, and we just don't fathom it here.
Yeah.
But what I'm thinking now is
there's over 1 billion people. They're over 1 billion. There's a 1.2
billion people. That's an eighth of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
Living in that one space.
Where is this going?
Honestly, the worst thing is hospitals are overstretched. The biggest thing is there's lack of oxygen, right? Okay, yeah. So people aren't even getting oxygen, right? They aren't getting treated. I mean, it's one thing hospitals and the health service being overwhelmed, but imagine how bad it is that even crematoriums, right? Yeah, overwhelmed. Even crematoriums are turning people away, saying, "Look, sorry."
They're burning bodies on the street now.
Literally on the pavement.
Yeah, I saw that.
And in terms of answering your question, where is this going to go? As long as this government is in place, I think it's only going to go backwards. And I'm sorry again making about the government, but the point I'm trying to make here is if you have a government who is only interested in keeping themselves in power, and how are they doing that? They're holding rallies, they're giving FaceTime, with the people and so on.
So to be fair, we live in the UK.
Yeah.
We're Indian, so we can relate a tiny bit to what's happening in India, but we live in the UK.
Yeah.
And we've seen the government here, whatever you might not personally agree with, they've kind of taken some sort of sensible steps to, enforced a 4-month lockdown starting at the end of 2020.
A bit late, but yeah, okay.
But they stopped the curve. They've starting the vaccinations. You can see there's a sort of a system in place where the government can say X and this will happen.
But again, the levels of competence in this government, even though it's not very high compared to the government in India, right? Okay, yeah, there is a vast difference. Okay, yeah, you have one guy, who's come into power as a nationalist, okay, as a strong man, okay, yeah. Even in the last elections when he was campaigning and stuff, he kept referencing his 56-inch chest and stuff, right? Okay, so it was like this whole ego thing that he's created. He's created a cult status, basically, what he's done. Those people those kind of leaders is very much like Trump and, the Brazilian president as well. Those people, they're not necessarily trusting in science or what things, for them, it's not taking the reasonable approach. It's more so just telling them and saying words for the sake of saying words and trying to heal people with the words and nothing else, right? Okay, yeah. With these, even when you look at the elections that's happening in West Bengal now, there was this whole the BJP tweeted, basically said if you bring the BJP into power in West Bengal, it'll we'll give everybody free vaccines. That's a power move. That's basically saying, look, give us your vote, and we'll give you a free vaccine.
Yeah,
shouldn't vaccines be free anyway? They should be giving vaccines for free anyway. But this is the kind of trade deals they're trying to make with people, man. They're literally saying, look, we'll only save your life if you fucking give us a vote. And if you're gonna have that government in place, if you're gonna have a government with that set of mindset in place, I mean, is it really gonna go forward?
I can't even comment because I don't even know much about that area, but I've seen a few things, but yeah.
Well, where do you think it's going for India?
I feel like they got a long way to go, man. I feel like the reality is starting to hit them, but hasn't even hit them yet. So I hope that they can get it together, man. But because the numbers are alarming, and what's happening, what we even see on the BBC and the news outlets that we have, I think that's just a very small percentage of what's actually happening over there, and what is actually happening over there is, like you said, incredibly distressing, and we wouldn't even want to be watching that. So I hope that they can get it around, but I feel like they got a long way to go, man.
Huge way. I mean, again, bringing it back to the government, like there was a state minister, right? No.
Listen. We can have another podcast just about Aman's views on the BJP.
I must have been bringing it back to the government like 6 times.
No. Like, okay, look, the 2 points I want to make before we go. Yeah, like 2 points right here. Firstly, one of they were questioned. Okay, yes, like, look, what's happening? These people are dying. So one of the BJP ministers in one of the states basically said, he was tasked with curbing COVID. By the way, he said, look, yeah, people are dying, but you know so what? Like, people die of old age anyway. So that's the mentality they have there right now. The government not giving a shit. And then the second thing as well, like, you know, because these BJP, they're bloody lunatics, man. Like, you know, like you see nationalism on the rise and stuff, right? Okay, yeah. So a lot of these, there was this, I think, another BJP worker, right? Yeah, who basically was. So there's this like video, right? Okay, yeah, and this was doing the rounds on Instagram and stuff I saw on. There's this like clearly distressed woman, you know, who's struggling to breathe, has like an oxygen mask and so on. And one of the BJP workers basically, like, there's this whole rise of like, you know, drinking, like, you know, saying, well, you know, if you drink the cow's urine or if you eat the cow's, like, you know, pats and stuff, right, it will cure you. So this BJP worker, right, yeah, feeding literally this really clearly distressed woman like cow urine in saying like, well, this will cure you of COVID and stuff. It's like that same shit, you know, Trump was saying, well, you know, if you put bleach in you, you know, you'll get rid of COVID and stuff. So that's the level of competence we're dealing with. And so, you know, I think you kind of leave it for you to judge how much worse this is going to get before it gets better. I don't know, like, how many people will have to die if, you know, if you're literally cremating people on the footpaths because there's no space for even cremation, you know. It's a bit of a distressing note to leave it on.
I think it'll be interesting to like talk about this in like a few weeks to see, like, you know, what the progress has actually been in India. And yeah,
right now I don't know, you know, sometimes things get worse before they get better, but like, it's so this feels like it's at the bottom of the world. I don't know if anything can get worse, but yeah, I think it'd be good to probably touch in a few weeks and see if anything has changed.
Yeah
right.
All right, nice one, guys.